Thanks for listening into our recording for Nutrien Ag Solutions Livestock Market Intel provided by Mecardo. I'm Olivia Agar, Manager of Business Development at Mecardo, and I have Mecardo's Managing Director, Robert Herrmann, and Adam Mountjoy with me today. We had some really good feedback from the last Lamb Outlook report and recording, and so Adam's asked us to take a look at the beef outlook now. So Rob and Adam are going to have a bit of a talk through the key points covered off in the Beef Outlook report. And if any of you have any burning questions or topic areas you'd like us to have a look at in the future, please just get in touch with us or Adam, or for more info on what Mecardo's reporting on, you can sign up to our subscription on the Mecardo website using the coupon code #Nutrien for access to our premium analysis. So I'll hand over to Adam now and they can kick off going through the report.
Thanks very much, Olivia, and good afternoon. Welcome, guys, and thank you, Rob and Olivia, for your hard work in putting together what is our second feature here, the Nutrien Livestock Beef Outlook. As promised to the network, as we enter the spring months, we've now kicked off into September, and this report looks pretty exciting, Rob. We've seen some outstanding results year on year, and if you'd just like to talk through some of the main points, I guess, for the network, and what we can come up with here is a bit of a plan forward as we move into this spring selling period. Let's start with where we are currently, which clearly states, Rob, in your research, the EYCI now sitting 56% above of where we saw it last year.
Yes, it's great to be able to talk about something so positive in this time when everyone's struggling with good ideas and happy thoughts, I suppose. But if you're in the beef cattle business, it's a great time, Adam. As you pointed out, the market is well above this time last year. I think I just had a look before we came on air today, and it's worth remembering that, in fact, in January of this year, the market was actually lower than what it was this time last year. So in our report, we're saying that this time last year it was 500 cents, the EYCI. In fact, in January, it was only 482. So this big surge has actually come in 2020. So, in the last 9 months, which is terrific. And it's on the back of, tighter supply. We know all that. I think what I'm reading into this, Adam, though, is there's two things. One is that the market is very, very strong now. It's a result of good, strong beef prices and also strong restocker demand. But the second thing I'm reading into it is how big an impact this drought had on our cattle market last year. It really did have a big impact on it. And we talked about lamb and sheep last report, and they didn't get impacted like that. But beef did, and now it's really up and running. And even the cow indicator is 28%, or a bit more than that, 28% above this time last year. Everything is really looking quite strong. As I say, the breaking of the drought was the trigger that really got things kicking.
Yeah, there's some really, really interesting figures here, Rob, to back up those comments throughout the report. And as we advised last month with our sheep and lamb report for the network, to really look through these reports and then listen to our commentary to pull out the sweet bits, if you like. And we see here that the EYCI benchmark rarely trades above the 90 CL price. Well, at the moment, in the report stating here, Rob, it's done some 300 cent turnaround year on year. So it's a real driver for the market, isn't it?
Look, you've jumped to the I guess the cautionary note in our report, and that's the question about whether these prices can hold. Now, we know what's driving the prices up. So we've got a 30-year low herd. We've got strong meat demand, and look, the thing is about the COVID crisis, we know that people have still got money to spend on meat and food. They might be buying slightly different cuts, but they're still spending it. So that's okay. And also we had this huge female slaughter through all of last year, and the processors really were able to access a lot of beef and a lot of heads to slaughter because everyone was just taking the money, if you like, and destocking to some degree on the East Coast. The female slaughter rate, and we've left that chart in the in the report this time, is still very high. And that's surprising because when you look at it, we've had the drought break, restocking's happening. What we think is driving that is that there was a lot of females put onto feedlots, and they're still coming through. So we expect that female slaughter rate to drop and tighten up again the cattle that's available for slaughter. Now, what that'll do is be another supporting factor. So the supporting factors we've got are the tighter supply, the fact that feedlots are selling their finished cattle off at tremendous prices, and the numbers are down. We know feedlot numbers have just come down around 1 million head for the first time in 4 years. And we've got the seasonal conditions. So they're all the positives. The negative, I think, is the fact that if you look at the, as you pointed out, Adam, we look at the 90CL price, which we know is a really good index of prices going into the US mainly, that trim price. It's come down below the live cattle price, and as represented by the Eastern Young Cattle Indicator. And for all the period up to the drought on that chart, we can see that the EYCI was well under the meat price. And so, you know, there were big margins to be made, I guess, by people buying live cattle, processing them and selling the meat. That's turned around now. And so the way the processors will, we all know this, I mean, your guys have been dealing with this for forever, is that the way the processors will deal with this is either try and increase the price of meat. Now, that's obviously what they'll be trying to do, but it won't be easy. Or they'll try and bring back the price of live cattle. And we know that some of them are committed that they just have to keep processing. So, you know, I think the difficulty is going to be for those guys who are a bit on the margins, those processors on the margins, to keep going. You know, you've got staff to keep going, you've got costs to cover, but at the same time, you can't be tearing up money week after week, Adam, I don't think.
No, I'd agree there. And those comments, Robert, really lead us, is a great segue into leading into the last page of the report, which is clearly titled "Sell or Hold." And I guess as an advisory to the network, I'm really interested in the science and the mechanics behind this particular page. And you've led straight into it, Rob, in regards to you know, feedlot numbers just coming below 1 million. We have a buoyant season, particularly in the southern region, which we're talking about here. We're growing a lot of grass, we're growing a lot of free kilos, let's say, and we've got a pending grain crop coming, which looks to surpass a fair few records as well. So, feed grain may well be reduced in price, and we're going to have some heavy cattle to do something with. So, sell or hold? That's the question. We're seeing extraordinary rates at the moment for young cattle, and our lot feeders are getting out well at the moment, as we're led to believe. So, what should we do, Rob?
Well, it's a good one, because the glass is either half full or half empty, Adam. I'm not sure in this decision. Look, all those points you made are really strong, relevant, and obvious points about the positiveness of the cattle market right now. What we do know, and by the way, I should say, you know, your guys out in the field will be dealing with individual decisions around this, whereas what we're doing here, it's a theoretical model. You know, we're talking in general, but the individual decision will change. And I'll give you an example. In our model here, we use, you know, if the weaner price today is about 480, or was last week was about 480, there'll be weaners that are worth more than that. So that changes the equation again. So each of your agents and advisors will be actually weighing things up, but hopefully this can sort of provide some sort of framework that they can work to. Yep. So what we know is that over the last 10 years, the market for the feedlot type steer, and we've used the New South Wales trade steer as a good proxy for that indicator. It's come back at different times, come back 2%, come back 11%, but also in 5 out of 10 years, it's actually risen marginally. So what do we do this year? Well, what we said was, and people can use their own, have their own opinions on this for sure, is that we've said that, look, we think our average or our best case scenario, if you like, is that the market comes back about 5%. And if it comes back about 5%, there's a bit of money to be made in taking those cattle on that you've got now at sort of that 300 kilograms and worth $4.80. But it could come back, I don't like saying the worst case, because who knows what the worst case is these days, Adam, but our pessimistic approach would be it comes back about 15%. And if that happens, then I think we would look back and say it would have been better to actually sell those cattle now at the weights we've got at the high prices. Of course, if it doesn't come back and holds where the market is now, which is not unreasonable given the positive circumstances that you outlined, Adam, then there's really good money to be made out of carrying those cattle on, because, as you said, you know, we haven't seen a season where we've had as good a bank of feed ahead of us. The cattle are in good order generally. They've had a good run. They're ready to go. They're going to pile the weight on. So at the risk of being, you know, a fence sitter, if you like, or saying, you know, on the one hand and on the other hand, it is a difficult situation. But I think if everybody has a look at their particular circumstance, Adam, and says, well, look, my view is that it's not going to be as bad as it thinks, as everyone says, or I'm worried about the situation, and you can then make decisions. But I stress that your guys in the field are dealing with mobs of cattle and actual situations we've got in front of you. We're talking about the theory of it, and I think the two things can marry up.
Yeah, for sure. What we do have in our favour, Rob, for the first time in a long time, I guess, is really one of the best starts to the spring that we have seen in recent memory. So the extra kilos, if they are they're worth less cents per kilo, we're certainly going to be able to add those kilos on quickly and find a suitable out for these cattle as we approach the summer months. So yeah, we really appreciate your in-depth look into this month's report into the spring market for the beef sector. Rob, just looking at the slaughter numbers, obviously we were selling a lot of cattle last year and we didn't want to sell them, but you know, really looking at the slaughter numbers that are coming through, big numbers and big downturn in throughput, really at 26 and 29%, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's no way around that. I mean, our herd is now been really hit hard in the last few years. I would say this time last year we had a look at, I think Olivia looked at it, where the processors were paying the big prices and the restockers were buying at a discount. Now we've got, and the feedlots, now we've got that flipped around. And so the feedlots and the restockers are paying the premiums for the young cattle and the processors are paying the discounts. Now that may be a highly supportive fact in the cattle market, because if the feedlots are paying, are still able to turn those cattle up, remember their grain's going to be $100 a tonne cheaper this year than last year. Mm-hmm. So the feed cost is going to be less. If they can still make a good margin on those heavy cattle, then they're going to have an appetite to refill their feedlots as best they can. I mean, they will have less cattle to work with too, but they will be a strong force. And that could be, you know, we could just get through this with the good fortune we're having that the season broke before COVID broke, if you like. You know, it's almost like one might have cancelled the other out, and for the cattle industry.
We certainly see ourselves in an amazing space in the cattle space, Rob, and from your year's experience and my limited, there hasn't been too many times where we've seen the opportunity to achieve a higher price cents per kilo for a bullock than what we can for a new season's lamb, and that's unfortunately where we see ourselves at the moment, depending on what side of the state you want to live on. So,
yes, that's right, Adam. And although I would make a cautionary note about lamb, I think just watch lamb carefully. I think it was overdone on the downside on the price. Anyway, time will tell on that. But you're right. This, and just a note for Nutrien business, I guess, is that never more is it needed for people to be going out with sort of sitting down with their clients and just talking through the situation. You don't have to, you know, you mentioned that I've got a lot of experience. What you're really saying is I've been around a bit too long. But you don't actually have to actually give people all the answers, but if you can provide information, and then the answer will come out either with, between you, or they will come up with the answer and say, look, I think I'm happy to hold these steers right through. We've got a great season ahead of us. We'll finish them off. We'll do a good job, and I think we'll be all right. If those decisions are made with the information in front of them, then people are made, that's the way businesses work, and that's the way we'd like to think people will be advising and getting advice in this case.
Exactly. No, exactly, Rob. Thank you very much for your work and your time this afternoon, and also Olivia in your work in preparing this report for us on behalf of Nutrien Livestock, our September beef outlook. It is a tool for our agents and agencies to utilise in the marketplace, use on farm. It's a talking point, if nothing else, to put in front of our clients and really add value to the service offering that our Nutrien agents can bring to the field. So once again, I thank you, and keep posted for our next edition coming up in the month of October. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam and Rob. As Adam said, we'll be publishing these reports and recordings monthly, but Mecardo also produces a weekly podcast called Commodity Conversations, which looks at livestock markets as well as wool and grain. So for something a bit more regular, you can find that podcast on any of your normal podcast apps. Thanks, and we'll talk to you next time.